So recording in progress. Here we go. So here we are. We're in a class called happiness. You know, I know why most of you have taken this class. You can put it, you can use the chat too. I know why most of you take this class, because you want an A, right? You want an A. You want the A. Is anyone against that? Please let me know. Oh, 2 people said they don't want A's. Anyone else? 3? Anybody else to say? Cheryl said, I don't want to make that mistake. I want to make sure my hand didn't go up. I didn't twitch. I want to make sure he knows. I hear you. I'm with you. Professor, I'm in the A group. I don't know about the rest of the people, but I want to be in the A group. All right. I hear you. And that's what I want everybody to know. There's nothing wrong with wanting a good grade, you know. But I always said this, I even said it in my negotiation class, but I'm gonna continue with the same idea I was saying right before you guys joined. You know, we all want an A. And there's nothing, hey, how you doing? There's nothing wrong with getting an A. I'm all for it. I'll give you A's. But I want you to work in this truncated time to get the A, not because I want you to work, but I want you to see that you can change your life, if that's what you want. Does that make sense? You know, getting an A is great, but making sure you have better relationships with yourself is better. Getting an A is great, but having a better relationship with your children, or if you have children, if you're fortunate to have children, is better. Or with a significant other, or with your boss. That's important. So we're going to figure out very quickly, ways of automatically changing how we speak to ourselves and thinking about happiness totally differently. Because everybody says happiness, it has to be an easy class. But unfortunately, most of us, a lot of the time, are suffering. That's not a bad thing. I've suffered a lot. I'm almost 70. I don't look it. You got to say, I don't look it. You got to say, I don't look it. If you want to be, you're going to, I'm almost 60. I'm not 70 yet, but I'm getting there, right? So why am I saying that? I'm saying that to you this. Life gives you challenges. How we approach those challenges makes all the difference. Oh, I like that. This person's already learning. Karen said in the in the chat, I got to say, your negotiation class was the most interesting class I took last semester. I learned a lot. She's influencing me for the A. I hear that. She knows. I taught her well. She's well on for the A already. I give it to that. Thank you very much for that, Karen. I appreciate it. But I want everybody to know I do take this class very seriously. And I talked a little bit about in the negotiation class. I wanted people to know I tell personal things, personal as opposed to private. I tell you personal things so that you know why I'm teaching this class. I'm a Dharma teacher in Buddhism. I represent a group of 1 million Buddhists here in the New York City area. I've come from 2 generations of Christian ministers, both sides of my family. Church still is there. Church of God is one of the churches here, and Brooklyn Truth Center, which no longer exists. My grandmother's church was there. I sit on a couple of boards here in New York City and also around the country for bringing people together. I started this class when my mother started to have a battle with cancer. I lost my mother while I was teaching this class. My mother was a teacher too, and she's taught in this school. And she used to say, you're taking care of my students. So I feel that you on this Zoom are her students. She didn't teach this class, but I feel that way. I take care of my father right now who has dementia downstairs in the very house in the basement here. So I want you to understand, I'm not sitting around saying, oh, life is just a bowl of cherries. There are no weeds, there are no weeds, there are no weeds. We're going to learn not to worry about the weeds. What we're going to say is, let's remove the weeds out of the garden and keep going. Does that make sense? That's a fundamentally different way of looking at your life. Let's remove the weeds and keep going. And another thing we're going to learn in this class is, I call them true north principles or fundamentals. What do I mean by that? A lot of us have said, well, I've been working hard my whole life and I ain't got nothing for it. We feel that way. We do. But let me ask you a question. If this, I'm setting it up. If the sun rises in the east and sets in the west, sun rises in the east. I'm not making this up. This is really how it works. The sun rises in the east and sets in the west. No matter how enthusiastic you are, if you're running to the west looking for a sunrise, will you ever see it? No. So you have to be pointed in the right direction for your happiness, so that the conditions can reveal the happiness that exists within you. Does that make sense? It's a very fundamentally different way of looking at things. And another key point of our happiness that we're going to learn in this class is you are the boss. You're the boss. You're going to learn that you're the boss and that your happiness is inside of you. So let me give you an example. Well, before we do that, we've got 209. We're at 209 right now. And that's okay. We're here together. We're living the dream. And I'm very fortunate, to have you all be here during summer and COVID. So many challenges. Some of you may have lost family members. I had people who I worked with in different capacities who are not here as a result of COVID. So I'm not saying I want you to think differently. And the key thing I say in both negotiation class and in happiness class, you must stand guard at the gate of your mind. You will be responsible for what happens to you. And so we're going to learn what happens through that process. But before we get into all that, we don't have a lot of people here yet. But what I'd like to do is I'm going to break us up into, 2 groups. And I want people to say why they're taking this class. I know you want an A. But if you had to have a hallucination about what could you possibly learn from happiness and taking this class, what would it be? Is that fair? So let's break up into 2 groups quickly. Then we'll come back, introduce yourselves to each other. The few of us are here. And then we'll go from there. Where is it? Breakout rooms, there it is. And we're going to assign it 2. Make it 2. And we're going to assign automatically. There we go. We'll be back in a little while. So pick. Yeah. See it? Miss Graziano, push the button. Push the button. If you're there, Miss Graziano, if you've walked away, push the button. Miss Graziano, push the button. You haven't joined the room. There we go. So while they're in the midst of doing what they do, I wanted to share with you something that's important. Yeah, 10 minutes. 10 minutes, because you're not getting a chance to be in a breakout room. I think you need to know why you're doing things. So you should take a moment out to figure out why I'm taking happiness. You say, this is stupid. No. If you know the why, the how gets easy. Most people focus on the how. How am I going to get this? How am I going to make $1 million? How am I going to get rich? How am I going to marry the person of my dreams? How am I going to look better? How am I going to get in shape? How am I going to grow my hair back? The question is how, not how, but why. Why are you trying to grow your hair back? Why are you trying to have a different spouse? Why are you trying to get that job? Why do you want $1 million? Because that will tie in to all of your internal motivators to get you to where you want to be. And a lot of it will be tied to, unfortunately, the fact most of us don't understand what we're trying to do, right? So I wanted to, I'm looking through this thing. I had one thing I needed to put in this schedule is the emotional life. That's very important. I don't see that in the, I don't see the assignments for emotional life. So what I'll tell people to do, be aware I'm going to put those assignments up because they're very, very important to at least begin to look at its emotional life. It's a very important video. And if people can't find it, we may even share a little time together. I'll show some synopses of that. because it's very important. In addition to that, we're going to be watching videos throughout the entire process. I don't know why that's something like this. Look like a crazy person. And what we're going to try to do throughout is to introduce multiple levels of learning. There are several cues, which I'm going to mention to the other group, but since you're here with me right now, I get a chance to tell you. There's something called VACOG: visual, auditory, kinesthetic, olfactory, and gustatory. The belly. Unfortunately, I've got a belly. Hopefully you have a stomach. I have a belly. Right? So when I show you a YouTube video, I'm actually getting you on a visual and most often a kinesthetic, how you feel level, and also on an auditory basis. You're hearing it, you're seeing it, you're hearing it, and you're feeling it. And if you have those three modalities working in harmony, you'll learn something. Does that make sense? So it's visual, auditory, and kinesthetic. We'll have those three fundamentals there. So I don't want to go too far ahead without the rest of the group, but I see emotional life. Remind me to tell the other people when they get back. I have to talk emotional life. And then we're also going to do a very important, quick 10-minute, 10-second, a 10-second approach to how you can find out what's important in your life automatically. Yeah, I don't want you to go anywhere, because you're going to find out how you can find out something is valuable to you. And we're going to learn about something in this very first class about what our personal formulas are for our happiness. Okay, it's very, very important. So with that said, I'll be back in 2 minutes. 2 minutes. I'm going to mute my camera. Yes, that's still me. And I will put myself in. We are back, and I have only 1 more minute. Yeah, it's been that. It's like a magic. It's as if everything was paused, right? It's as if everything was paused. Hopefully I'm making sense, and you're feeling good today. And if you're not, don't hesitate. Let's talk about real life challenges that we're going through. So I'm going to bring the people back right now in about 60 seconds. So I'm going to hit the button right now. I'm going to close all rooms, and they get a 60-second. I'm going to tell them right now, I'm going to be bringing back you soon. Hearing you soon. And now that I've sent that message out, it gives me a little warning. And now I'm going to press the magic close all rooms button. Here we go. Hopefully they've gotten a little bit. And let's watch and see if their demeanor is different from when they left. Let's watch. All right, people are coming back. They're coming back. All right. All right. Good. People got out of the room too. People out of the room too. Boom. We're out of there. Room 1 still hanging in there. They got 30 more seconds. That's a good sign either way. But room 2, you're the ones who came in first. Did it have an impact on how you were relating to each other? Did you guys talk a little bit? No one says anything. They're all coming back. What happened? Oh, no, we'll get rid of that.
My group spoke. We say something.
All right. That's what I want to hear.
We introduce ourselves. We talk to each other.
All
we
right.
learn about each other.
That's good. That's good. Isn't that a good feeling?
Yes, it is.
It is a good feeling. We're gonna find out why. There's a reason for that. Anybody else want to say? Did anyone want to share why they think, besides getting an A and it's an easy class? Right? Why? This is an easy class. I read ratemyprofessor.com. Right? You know, does that make sense to everybody? What is the other reason why you may have taken this class? What else is going on? Anybody? Anybody know? Nobody wants to admit it.
Well, I know it's part of my requirement to graduate.
That's a beautiful thing.
Class.
That's a beautiful thing.
Yes.
Only a few classes, you know, this class, when I first was teaching it, maybe in 2008, it was an experimental class. I've now taught thousands of students in happiness, right? And I'm going to start writing about this topic. But let's get right down to something. Let's do an experiment right now. Before we do the experiment, I have to tell you some information you don't know, but it'll make sense to you as immediately as I say it. The first thing is, every human being, that's why you know your name, that's why you you get into a certain car, you go into a certain house, you say, hey, mom, whoever it is, I love you, whatever it is. You have a map inside your mind. Think about what I'm saying. We all have certain maps for certain things that tells us about our life. Does that make sense? We all have maps inside of our brain. Now, I used to use Donald Trump, but people don't like Donald Trump anymore. I used to say, if you had Donald Trump's map for real estate, just way before he was president, I said, if you put his map in real estate, because you probably don't know about his real estate as much, you could make a lot more money in what? Real estate. Because now you'd have a new map in your head. But most of us don't think about ourselves as being able to easily and quickly change our maps. But a map is nothing more than a description about the territory. The map isn't real. It's just our interpretation of what's happening. And what do I mean? If you go into a restaurant, let's say you went to the favorite restaurant, it's open, COVID's over. COVID's over. You go to your favorite restaurant and you say, oh, I'd like to, yeah, this is great. What do you want? No, I'll just eat the menu. That'd be odd, wouldn't it? You go into a restaurant, you say, I don't want anything else but the menu. No, you have to have the what in order to have the experience of the restaurant. You have to what? Eat, right? So the map is not the territory. It doesn't tell you, it sort of informs you about the relationship, but it's not the relationship. We think it is. Now, the most important relationship is with whom? Who do you think? Who do you think the most important relationship is?
Self.
Yourself. That's right, Dennis. Yeah, it's still the same answer, right? Yourself. Most of us don't realize we're constantly in dialogue with ourselves. The little voice you hear in your brain, the thinking you have in your brain is really nothing more than a dialogue with self about the maps of the world. And let me show you how simple happiness is and being unhappy is. I want you to think about not something that's going to make you scream and cry. Just think about something you're dissatisfied with. Think about what I'm saying. If you think about something you're dissatisfied with, you'll find the map, the internal belief that you have inside of yourself, doesn't match the external reality. That's what I just said. I tap my big belly, my COVID belly. I'm not happy with the COVID belly, okay? That's because I have a map inside of my head that says I'm supposed to have a six-pack here, not this belly. The map inside of my brain doesn't match the outer circumstance. And that makes me feel what? Unhappy. So we can see unhappiness is caused, simply put, when the internal map of what we want to happen doesn't match the outer reality. Let's flip it around for a second. Let's get rid of that old foolish thing. Let's think about something we're satisfied with, something we're pleased with. If we take the moment to do this, and if we were in class, I'd actually make you write it down, you'll see your happiness is, or you're pleased with something, when the internal map matches the external reality. Does that make sense? Interesting. You mean to tell me, Professor, my happiness is really inside of my thinking and what my map is? Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying. In the very first class, I'm telling you something that most people will never know their entire life. That their map and the outer circumstances combined causes plus conditions equals outcomes. What ends up happening is when the internal map doesn't meet the expectations of the outer circumstance, you feel dissatisfied. What's really exciting to know is we're big boys and girls. Guess what? We can change our map. That's really interesting. That's why I started off by calling it a map. People say, that's just the way my life is. That's just the way I am. Those are called maps. And you're just committed to your map. Guess what? You can change your map anytime you want to. Oh, boy. You may not be able to change your outer circumstance. Let's say you got into a car accident and you became paralyzed. We're going to see a situation of just that situation with someone. You can't change the outer circumstance. I can't change that. But I can change my map so that it meets my what? Need for happiness. Wow. So we can always change our map. Interesting, right? So in the very first class, we've already talked about, we already know how to change our happiness. So the whole point of the class is to figure out what your map is. That's why it's unique to you. It's not like anybody else's map. We're going to figure out what your map is. You're going to discover what your map is. And then you're going to figure out if and when you want to change something or strengthen it. That's why I have in one of the assignments, I have it even in the opening syllabi. I say, what is your personal formula for happiness? Because that means, what is your map? What makes you happy won't make me happy. Maybe I'm a vegetarian eating plant food, which I am. And everybody goes, that doesn't sound too exciting, Professor. So you don't have to use my map. That's what I'm trying to say. We need to discover what your map is. All right? All right. So let's go over some of the things that are going to be there. I want you to post your introductions on Blackboard so I can get to know you and I'll respond back, hopefully, right? That's the key. Then you're going to have various assignments. One of your colleagues asked already, they're going to be, homework 1, and then there's going to be a video, and I'll send that video up to you guys. If it's not up in the assignment, you'll see it, right? And you'll respond to that assignment and watch that video. It's very simple. Usually I want 3 or 4 points. I don't need a 1,000 questions answered. The questions are primarily going to be from Laird, lessons in a new science, lessons on happiness. Because he really does a good job of beginning to understand people's maps. And so that gives you a chance to open up for your map. So that's a good book, right? And I know that some of you, may not have gotten the books yet. You may not have gotten the books. So I give some leeway into that as well for that first assignment. And, I'm really looking for the video. You'll see what that is. Okay, does that make sense? You'll all get that the next day. I'll make sure everything's okay for you guys the next day. All right. So first of all, did we see anything? Is everyone making sense of what I've said so far? Are we okay so far? Is that making sense, or are we all right? All right. Did anyone see the video that I sent with the opening blurb? Did anyone, I sent out a blurb yesterday. Did everyone see that, or didn't get a chance yet to see it? Just if you didn't get the chance to see it, just raise your hand. Did anyone? Not yet.
Yes, I saw it.
All right, one person saw it. All right, so I'm going to show it to you now. Shirley, let me ask you a question. Was it a good video?
It was.
All
It was
right.
for fun.
All right, it was for fun. So we're going to watch it. It's only about 5 to 10 minutes. Let's watch it together. And I want us to get something out of it. You say, why would you do that? Because repetition is the mother of skill. Watching things over and over again. How many times have I seen this guy give this talk? 50 times. I've seen it 50 times. And I always get something out of it. I'm emotional, so I won't start crying with it. All right, so let's watch him and see what he has to say. Share sound, optimize for video, and now we're ready to share. And can everyone see it in
The
here?
wisest person I ever met in my life. a third grade dropout. Why
Yes.
is this and dropout in the same sentence is rather oxymoronic? Like jumbo shrimp. Like fun run. Ain't nothing fun about it. Like Microsoft Works. Y'all don't hear me. I used to say like country music, but I've lived in Texas so long, I love country music now. I hunt, I fish, I have cowboy boots and cowboy. Y'all, I'm a black neck redneck. Do you hear what I'm saying to you? No longer oxymoronic for me to say country music. And it's not oxymoronic for me to say third grade and dropout. That third grade dropout, the wisest person I ever met in my life, who taught me to combine knowledge and wisdom to make an impact, was my father. A simple cook. Wisest man I ever met in my life. Just a simple cook. Left school in the third grade to help out on the family farm, but just because he left school doesn't mean his education stopped. Mark Twain once said, "I've never allowed my schooling to get in the way of my education." My father taught himself how to read, taught himself how to write, decided in the midst of Jim Crowism, as America was breathing the last gasp of the Civil War, my father decided he was going to stand and be a man. Not a black man, not a brown man, not a white man, but a man. He literally challenged himself to be the best that he could all the days of his life. I have 4 degrees. My brother is a judge. We're not the smartest ones in our family. It's a third grade dropout daddy. A third grade dropout daddy who was quoting Michelangelo, saying to us, "Boys, I won't have a problem if you aim high and miss, but I'm gonna have a real issue if you aim low and hit." A country mother quoting Henry Ford, saying, "If you think you can or if you think you can't, you're right." I learned that from a third grade drop. Simple lessons. Lessons like these. Son, you'd rather be an hour early than a minute late. We never knew what time it was at my house because the clocks were always ahead. My mother said for nearly 30 years, my father left the house at 3:45 in the morning. One day she asked him, "Why, Daddy?" He said, "Maybe one of my boys will catch me in the act of excellence." I want to share 2 things with you. Aristotle said, "You are what you repeatedly do." Therefore, excellence ought to be a habit, not an act. Don't ever forget that. I know you're tough, but always remember to be kind. Always. Don't ever forget that. Never embarrass mama. Yeah. If mama ain't happy, ain't nobody happy. If daddy ain't happy, don't nobody care. But you know, I'm trying to tell you. Next lesson. Lesson from a cook over there in the galley. Son, make sure your servant's towel is bigger than your ego. Ego is the anesthesia that deadens the pain of stupidity. Y'all might have a relative in mind you want to send that to. Let me say it again. Ego is the anesthesia that deadens the pain of stupidity. Pride is the burden of a foolish person. John Wooden coached basketball at UCLA for a living, but his calling was to impact people. And with all those national championships, guess what he was found doing in the middle of the week? Going into the cupboard, grabbing a broom, and sweeping his own gym floor. You want to make an impact? Find your broom. Every day of your life, you find your broom. You grow your influence that way. That way you're attracting people so that you can impact them. Final lesson. Son, if you're gonna do a job, do it right. I've always been told how average I can be. Always been criticized about being average. But I want to tell you something. I stand here before you, before all of these people, not listening to those words, but telling myself every single day to shoot for the stars, to be the best that I can be. Good enough isn't good enough if it can be better, and better isn't good enough if it can be best. Let me close with a very personal story that I think will bring all this into focus. Wisdom will come to you in the unlikeliest of sources, a lot of times through failure. When you hit rock bottom, remember this. While you're struggling, rock bottom can also be a great foundation on which to build and on which to grow. I'm not worried that you'll be successful. I'm worried that you won't fail from time to time. Person that gets up off the canvas and keeps growing, that's the person that will continue to grow their influence. Back in the 70s, to help me make this point, let me introduce you to someone. I met the finest woman I'd ever met in my life. Back in my day, we'd have called her a brick house. This woman was the finest woman I'd ever seen in my life. There's just one little problem. Back then, ladies didn't like big old linemen. The Blind Side hadn't come out yet. They like quarterbacks and running backs. We're at this dance, and I find out her name is Trina Williams from Lompoc, California. And we're all dancing, and we're just excited. And I decide in the middle of dancing with her that I would ask her for her phone number. Trina was the first one. Trina was the only woman in college who gave me her real telephone number. The next day, we walked to Baskin & Robbins ice cream parlor. My friends couldn't believe it. This has been 40 years ago, and my friends still can't believe it. We go on a second date, and a third date, and a fourth date. We drive from Chico to Vallejo so that she could meet my parents. My father meets her, my daddy, my hero. He meets her, pulls me to the side and says, "Is she psycho?" But anyway, we go together for a year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. By now, Trina's a senior in college. I'm still a freshman, but I'm working some things out. I'm so glad I graduated in 4 terms. Nixon, Ford, Carter, Reagan. So now it's time to propose. So I talk to her girlfriends, and it's California, it's in the 70s, so it has to be outside. You have to have a candle, and you have to have, some chocolate. And listen, I'm from the hood. I had a bottle of Boone's Farm wine. That's what I had. She said yes. That was the key. I married the most beautiful woman I'd ever seen in my life. Y'all ever been to a wedding, and even before the wedding starts, you hear this? How in the world? And it was coming from my side of the family. We get married, we have a few children, our lives are great. One day, Trina finds a lump in her left breast. Breast cancer. 6 years after that diagnosis, me and my 2 little boys walked up to Mommy's casket. And for 2 years, my heart didn't beat. If it wasn't for my faith in God, I wouldn't be standing here today. If it wasn't for those 2 little boys, there would have been no reason for which to go on. I was completely lost. That was rock bottom. You know what sustained me? The wisdom of a 3rd grade dropout. The wisdom of a simple cook. We're at the casket. I'd never seen my dad cry. But this time I saw my dad cry. That was his daughter. Trina was his daughter, not his daughter-in-law. And I'm right behind my father, about to see her for the last time on this earth. And my father shared 3 words with me that changed my life right there at the casket. It would be the last lesson he would ever teach me. He said, "Son, just stand. You keep standing. You keep standing, no matter how rough the sea, you keep standing." And I'm not talking about just water. You keep standing. No matter what, you don't give up. And as clearly as I'm talking to you today, these were some of her last words to me. She looked me in the eye and she said, "It doesn't matter to me any longer how long I live. What matters to me most is how I live." I ask y'all one question, a question that I was asked all my life by a 3rd grade dropout. How you living? How you living? Every day, ask yourself that question, how you living? Here's what a cook would suggest you to live this way. That you would not judge, that you would show up early, that you'd be kind, that you'd make sure that that servant's towel is huge and used, that if you're gonna do something, you do it the right way. That cook would tell you this, that it's never wrong to do the right thing, that how you do anything is how you do everything. And in that way, you will grow your influence to make an impact. In that way, you will honor all those who have gone before you, who have invested in you. Look in those unlikeliest places for wisdom. Enhance your life every day by seeking that wisdom and asking yourself every night, how am I living? May God richly bless y'all. Thank you for having me.
Was that good?
That was one of the best speeches I've ever heard.
That was great.
Really good.
right? So the question is, that's
Yes.
why we shared it together, because we introduced ourselves to each other. And the question I have to ask is, how you living? You know, your happiness is, I have my notes. And one of the questions I wanted to ask before, you know, this is the first session, what's your purpose in life? And you know, we are born, we die, and in between, we ask the question how we're living. How are we serving other people and ourselves? So it's good to get an A, but more important is to ask that question, how you're living. What's my purpose? Why did the universe give me life? Even a worm can feed itself. So how you living? Interesting, right? People don't think that's what it's about, but that's what this happiness class is about. I want you to think about, come on, one more thing. There's a lot of stuff that's going to happen in this course. One of the things that is always going to go back, what's my purpose? Because if you know the why, the how gets easy. And here's the key thing. Is there a difference between pain and suffering? Pain isn't always bad. Can pain help us?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Let's say you put your hand in the fire. If you didn't know it was going to be painful, you go, hey, this is pretty good. It's tingly. What would happen to your hand? You wouldn't have a hand for long, right? So pain can inform us. Don't do this, do that. It can inform us about what we and how we're experiencing our world. What's the difference between suffering and pain? Suffering is where you're feeling pain and you believe there's nothing you can do about it. People start saying, no one's ever going to like me, love me, want to go here, whatever it is we fantasize about. There's no one out of the 7 billion people on the planet who are going to do that. We make up stories that are not true. We shrink our maps down to where we feel like we're in a cage and jailed, and we don't remember we can always serve. We can always help someone. We can always change our map. Does that make sense? Different way. All right. So, you know, one of the things that I wanted to leave you with, this isn't rational all the time, but it's very, very true. As you start to go through this process, sometimes, you know, as things get better for you, and they will, you may not feel comfortable. Sometimes when we start to improve, we don't feel comfortable. You say, that doesn't make any sense, Professor. I want it all. I want a Maserati, a Porsche. I want a pool for everybody on the screen, and one for me and one for you. We say that, but I don't know if that's true. Think of it this way. Have you ever been in a room where it's too cold? You say, of course, I've been in a room where it's too cold. What do? If you have the opportunity, you can turn up the what? The heat. But also, have you ever been in a room that's too hot? Yes, you have. And you might turn on the what? Air conditioner. Sometimes our happiness is just like that too. When we get outside of our comfort zone, we start to do things that will bring us back down into a temperature we are familiar with and comfortable with. And why do we do that? Because it's familiarity. It gives us a sense. We're going to learn about this certainty. One of the 6 human needs is certainty. So I want you to be able to explore, as one person put in the chat, open our minds so that we can see the world with fresh eyes. So we can ask a question on what's my purpose, and answer at night, how am I living? With expectancy and joy. It's very, very important. So before we go, I'm going to teach you these 6 human needs. I'm going to repeat it over and over again because it's going to be part of an assignment that you're going to have to do. What are the 6 human needs? Why is this important? What am I teaching you in this happiness class? I want you to know this. You are learning something called strategic interventionist techniques or approaches. Listen to what I just said. Strategic interventionist approaches, or practices. You are not going to just say you took a happiness class. No, you're going to go, when you go in an interview, say, I have learned and been trained in strategic interventionist practices and approaches. Do you hear what I just said? Because these approaches can not only be used for oneself or to identify conditions for a person, but they can also be used to dissect and develop a company. A company. I talk about it in negotiation, but I also here, I'm talking about it in a different way. I want you to know these 6 human needs, which are 6 structural needs, which can be applied to a corporation. So when you're talking in an interview, nobody else will be able to talk in the way that you can. You will be paid for your uniqueness, not your sameness. Listen to me very carefully. People are paid for their uniqueness, not their sameness. I can rap, but I can't rap like Jay-Z or, or anybody else. So therefore, no one's paying to buy my rap songs, right? They're paid, whomever they are, because they are unique. Okay, so these are 6 human needs. The first thing is certainty. In our lives, we need a certain amount of certainty. You're using a computer. If the computer was going to give you an electric shock every other time you used it, you'd be like, I don't want to use this computer. This is crazy. I might die. Because we need certainty in our lives. If we don't have sufficient certainty, we can often become depressed. We can become scared. All right. But too much certainty is boring. Let's say you're going with someone, they're dating you, they say, I'm in love with you, I'm in love with you. And every day they come and knock on your door at 5 in the morning and they say, I love you. Here's a 1 red rose because I love you. Oh, this was so nice. They woke me up, but it's okay. After the first time, that's okay. After the 10th time, it's okay. After 8 months of them giving you a rose and knocking you up and waking you up at 5 in the morning, you're going to say, stop it. You're crazy. Stop this, right? Because even though it's certain, you need the second human need is variety. You need variety. The human nervous system requires variety. If a person's crying, have you ever been crying? Eventually you just stop crying. Why? Because your nervous system will stop you from crying. So while we have certainty as the first human need, the one that works almost in a different direction is the second human need is variety. The third human need is the one that I often talk about, and Aaron took my class already, and she knows we were in negotiation, and I say this is the most important one when you're talking to other people, is significance. Each and every one of us has a need to feel significant, and so does the person we're talking to. So if you're not talking to them and not listening to them, and you devalue their significance, they're not going to respond to you. But the most important person you have to have a relationship with is, as has already been said by Dennis, I think it was, is yourself. And so you have to make sure that you're okay, that you stand guard at the gate of your mind. You're okay before you engage the world. So you must make sure that you have the right relationship with yourself. And that is significance. So that was the first one, was certainty, variety, significance. The fourth one is connection and love. Connection and love. We all need to be connected to something. And most of us, that would actually lead us to love. But most of us, I say, hey, wait a second, Professor, I'm not into this love game. Everybody knows, because if you do too much love, you say, I love the person, say, well, guess what? I don't love you. So you say, I can't take the pain, right? So that's what happens. People say, I want the experience potentially of love, but it's too potentially painful. So they will often avoid love and seek connection, even in committed relationships. People can get married, use the word love, but won't commit fully and will only have a connection. And then they wonder why they're having problems. Right? And I say this quickly, I know we're running out of time, I wanna make sure I get it right. Here's it is, they've done studies with people who've been gang members. Why did they join the gang? Because they got a good 401k plan? No, that's not why they joined the gang. Because they in fact got this number one thing, is where they got connection. And when they're connected, because of the association, they're doing things together, they have significance. They have certainty about relationship. They may even have variety because they're doing crazy things, sometimes illicit things, illegal things. So they're hitting on various four of the human needs. If you get 3, it can become addictive. That's why it's hard to stop, say, if you're going to take a drug or if you drink a lot. Why is it hard to stop? Because when you take a drink, you have certainty about how you're going to feel. It gives you variety from the experience outside. Very few people, some people do, but most people drink in social settings. They go to the bar, they drink with other people. So they get connection. They get significance with themselves. It's hard to break that addiction unless you can substitute it with something else. You're going to learn how. That's why that happens. So when people join gangs, what they find happening is that they seek connection. And that's why they'll frequently commit the same crimes over and over and over again and get arrested. Why? Not because they're stupid, but because they're trying to satisfy their human need. And the final 2 are considered aspirational. We did the first 4. Certainty, variety, significance, connection and love. And the last 2 are growth and contribution. Everything in the world needs to grow. If you are not growing, you are what? Stagnant and potentially dying. So we all want to grow. And the last one is tied to growth is contribution. We want to do something greater than ourselves. We want to make a contribution. We want to make sure our servant's towel is big enough for our dreams. And I'm telling you, as we're getting out of here, there's something inside of you that wants to get out. There's some greatness inside of you that wants to get out. It may not be. That's why you may say, well, I'm, I've just gone through Brooklyn College through the motions, because it doesn't touch your dreams. So I'm asking you to figure out what your purpose is so that you can touch your dreams, so you can change your destiny, so that you can have the type of life that has hope and love in it all the time. Doesn't mean that there are no weeds. It means you'll have ways of taking care of the weeds so that you can grow and contribute the way you want to. You can change your map. That's the key first lesson for this first day. No matter what our life is today, we can change it for the better for tomorrow. Does that make sense to everybody? Are we okay? Any questions? So that's really where I wanted to stop today. That's a lot. We talked about 6 human needs. We talked about servant's towel. We talked about what's your purpose, right? But does anyone have any other questions about anything before we say hasta la vista? Anything? Are we okay? All right. All right, everybody. So what we're going to do is I'm going to send out some videos. I want us to be able to come back and discuss those videos. We haven't done it. I know reality. It's summertime. Right? But hopefully we'll be engaged with the course enough so that we can get something out of it. We can give something to each other and change each other's lives for the better. All right? Thank you so much, everybody. And please have a beautiful, beautiful day.
You too, Professor.
Thank you. Bye now.